Greetings, Ranger fans. Jake here for another edition of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where we look back on our classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews as we count down the 100 weeks to the 100th and final episode. So, welcome Sean, welcome Scott, welcome Chris, welcome Prince Vrak. Good to see you all. Welcome to everyone else still joining us. Yeah, it's hard to believe we are more than 3/4 of the way there now, which is terrifying for me personally. Welcome Nightwing Josh. Because I've got a lot of work left ahead of me over this next 24 weeks. I've got 4 episodes to get out in 24 weeks, and episode 97 is making some good headway right now. We've gotten a ton of filming done. It's like I've got to film some stuff at basically the beginning and end, and film some stuff with Marissa or with MJ, and we are nearly there on our filming. So hopefully by the end of the weekend, everything should be filmed. Welcome Jenny, welcome Lumina, welcome Athena. Good to see you all. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, knocking on wood we can get it all done. We are still continuing our house hunt, although we may have potentially landed something. We don't know yet, knocking on wood. This week was our first attempt at a bid on a house. And so we're still looking, so we have backup options, and we just came from a very good one. So Our housing hunt is potentially bearing fruit. We are knocking on all the wood, keeping our fingers crossed, hoping for the best. Oh, Jenny, congratulations on depositing for your college. Yes, Vrak is walking to discover the weaknesses of the Phantom Ranger. So, with regards to 97, filming, as I said, is coming along very well. I'm processing through all the footage. So I should hopefully have everything in place on that front by the end of the weekend. And if we continue to manage our productivity well, I should have all the footage shot and processed and not have to worry about pickup shots after this weekend. And then it's just whole hog, full bore editing effects for the next couple weeks to get it done. So hopefully I can go into May with everything that I need to work with. And then, yeah, so I'm hoping for 97 to be out by the end of May. Right now, it's definitely looking near the end of May as being a likely target. So making good progress towards that end. And then that means, July and August, for 99 and 98, which for 98 and 99, which will be just massive. That's going to be insane. Trying to get those 2 episodes out this summer. That is going to be a Herculean task. Those are going to be insane episodes. Not to mention the 100th episode in October. So I got a lot of work ahead of me. Okay, sounds like things are going well with getting your funding all together for college, so congratulations, Jenny. Hey there, Brian Dylan Campbell. So, let us start to really dive into things, though, here, and before we do, let us always not forget our 3 equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say with me, chat, Black Lives Matter. Number 2, say with me, chat, fascism is bad. And number 3, say it with me, chat, superheroes are fun. So let us check in with our favorite superhero turned supervillain, one Mr. Database Ranger, as we dive into the 76th episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews. Our review of Power Rangers Super Megaforce, episode 16. Vrak is back. Part 1. Oh. I don't know why I have the captions on right now. So this is a little sort of recap on some of the things that happened during the Summer Saga, because I felt like it was very important to remind people of what Mayo and Guy had been through, because this is the episode where that finally starts to come into play. Like, we'd teased these things. We had the introduction of Guy's training and Mayo's tablet in their respective Summer Saga episodes. I look forward to working with you. Oh, Rudy, you're just in time. We just kicked it off. I love Dr. C. Also, this blackboard is literally just a random blackboard at the college that we happen to find. Don't you? And in episode 88, I finally come up with the acronym. This is also I thought this was a fun way to handle the review. Reminding us of how Database can sometimes have episodes beamed involuntarily into his head via the squee, as we established. Oh, my mic volume's a little low? Is it the mic volume for my voice, or the mic volume for the episode? But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, oh yeah, the episode's beamed directly into his head via the squee, which was something from the try to see if I can bring this up a little bit. So, hopefully that helped the sound issue. But yeah, the idea that this effect could be used offensively against the evil database, I thought was just such a nice little twist, and it's something that I have no idea why the volume is so low. I'll turn it up. Okay, so now it should be. It's much higher than it normally is on the mic, so I don't know what's going on there. But the idea of using his technopathy against him, I thought, was a really nice tactic that Kay and Mayo would be aware of and be able to utilize. And I went surprisingly hard on that song there. The inside of this head is a very frightening place. Let's leave it at that. I like just every now and again the dialogue reminding the audience of the fact that this is Venjix inhabiting Database's body and dealing with all the weirdness of being in Database's body, which includes spontaneous reviewing. Wait. Where's Guy? That's the next part of the and busting out their power cards for their first non-type related use. I loved that this ties in so well with the aspects of the Summer Saga that Database was unaware of. Also, that fight scene was literally choreographed and shot in like 5 minutes because there were people who needed the room that we were filming in. So I'm just like, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here. All right, Dave, you go doot, 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 and you react doot, 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 and here we go. I think I think the agents in the suits were me and Chris, if I recall correctly. Chris Kowalski, who we obviously had for filming that one scene towards the beginning.
Seriously, has no one been looking for either of these people? We've been trying, but as far as we can tell, they just disappeared. Useless. The Rangers tried busting out their old Megaforce blaster, but Vrak quickly blasts them first and counters their individual weapons just
It's fun that I'd almost forgotten how R Beta and R Alpha were functionally his database's minions while he was evil. And they really do get a chance to play around with the they ended up being better developed as agents than I actually had intended at the beginning of writing this year's worth of episodes. And it really was just sort of something that evolved out of things. Like initially, I'd recruited Steve to be the H agents, but then I decided to utilize him as H Omega later, and that meant that he got taken out of action, and the R agents just seemed to be a better fit. Also, Rachel was such a good sport with all of this, because once again, remember, every single shot that you've seen of the R agents, we're shooting them twice, and we're trying to synchronize things, synchronize someone with themselves. So, Rudy, that's a good question on how we can take control of database with regards to human DNA. Remember, database is not a human. He's a synth organic biomechanoid. He has a positronic brain. So, he's not, he didn't require the full mechanization like someone like Dylan required. Because he was already, by certain definitions, a robot, a synthetic being. Oh, how do I deal with my audio problems? I love the R agents can't tell if database is talking about them or and they don't know about the R2-3 2 reference. Unfortunately, it looked like I had a little bit of overlap between the screen and Rachel's face in that one shot, so that was a little oversight there. And there's only one thing to do when your enemy's plans have gone so far out of sight that you can't see them anymore. What's that? You have to start thinking about where they need to go to accomplish their goals. And I don't know what that means for Vrak, but for Guy and Mayo, there's only one place they can go to get what they need to even have a hope of putting a dent in our operations. Round up the troops. It's time for me to head on home. As for Vrak, he's apparently now just chilling at the pier. And now database is aware that they are back at the apartment with Dr. K's workstation. Keep in mind, Vendrick's database, as far as he's aware, he doesn't know that K managed to escape from the other dimension. So he thinks that they're operating completely independently. And he doesn't actually know Mayo's backstory of being a hacker, so he doesn't know that she's capable of all this. With regards to audio problems, it varies on what the problem is. I tend to use Audacity to remove background noise if I can. And I do love these shots of all the agents coming in. That's our other friend Rachel and her husband Chris. Very old friends of MJ. Well, but specifically Rachel. MJ and Rachel have known each other since their, I want to say, middle school years. And so We tend to go visit their place for like New Year's parties and things like that. We've known them for obviously a very long time. Oh, and that was an interesting shot. Because I had to pull, we had to pull the car through. I had to actually composite the car behind itself to make it seem like we had multiple Priuses. Um, so that was, I believe, just us driving the Prius through once, and then I just composited the shot on top of itself for the other Prius to follow. Um, and then all of these shots of database with the R agents in the Prius were filmed at the same time as the shots from 75. Not the same day as the more Potsner stuff though. So Dave did lend us his car for us to use twice. Oh, and that shot of the agent with the gun, that with the trank gun, that may have been me. I forget. And then one of the nice things with having so many agents for the background is that I didn't need to try and bring them all in at once. It's like, okay, the alpha agents can come in and then. That was a fun effect. Guy was not really there, but Mayo was with the spell book.
So it turns out that despite all their efforts, the Megaforce Rangers end up furthering Vrak's goals just as much as Orion and Robo-Knight.
It was so much fun to pull the hologram trick. I felt like I needed to pull the hologram trick if we were going to be having K mastermind a takedown of Vengix database.
Second date, huh? Fine then. Play your little game. That certainly wasn't blast from the past.
And databases, or Vengix database is trying to figure out exactly where they landed. But I loved the hologram trick. The way that I got that sort of effect was I used a mosaic filter to create the vertical lines, and then I did sort of a blue filter to create that, and just kind of flickered it back and forth between the two, and cut it around my foot with some bit of cropping. That came across surprisingly clean. It was a surprisingly simple but clean effect. Plain, execute, exposit, repeat. And I love that Vengix is still compelled to act as database. It's a fun thing, and it was fun to perform because I'm very much still database, just with a very slightly different tone. The vocal tone, my voice is still the same, but the attitude is just tweaked a little bit to add this little smugness.
What's wrong? Don't you want to hear my final thoughts? Fine. Go on then. Overall, the concept here may be strong, but the weak and repetitive exposition robs all impact. Not to mention, this is a continuation of a story that basically been abandoned for the better part of a year. Clearly, none of the Rangers have any investment in seeing either of these characters return, so why should we?
And then,
finally,
it's one. I will admit I do have a lot of variation in the audio, but I do try to make sure that people are filming in the same place.
Overwhelmingly hopeless situation they now find themselves in. That's enough. I was wondering when you'd get here. Kudos to the whole switcheroo with the hologram and teleportation. You Hexagon kids are more resourceful than I thought. Didn't realize you had those kind of tricks at your disposal. Not my tricks. Really now? Well, you'll have to tell me all about it when I take you back to Alphabet Soup. Not happening.
I did just add in this little note about his haircut, because Dave did get a haircut beforehand. And yeah, those are all my kicks. That was a limber day there. Like I didn't have to do too much by way of camera tricks to pull off those kicks, which was fun. Just had to pop my shoulder back in.
It's only a matter of time before the two of you are nice and cozy back at Alphabet Soup. Might consider
anything. I'd almost forgotten that Dr. C was in this part.
Game's over, Vengeance. We're bringing database back.
And I love the little reveal at the very end that Dr. K has returned. It just, because it's just so satisfying. Then that final line there is just so satisfying. But yeah, every now and again, I just have to kind of subtly acknowledge Dave's change of hair, because unfortunately, unlike with me, where my hair length is all behind me, and MJ's characters who wear wigs, when guys' hair changes length, it's very obvious. So I do try to acknowledge it when I can, although it's become more and more difficult as episodes are shot with footage like months or even years apart. So matching up haircut has become much more difficult, and I've made much less of an effort to actually acknowledge it. Yeah, this was all just sort of that feeling of a plan coming together that I felt was very satisfying. And it really plays well into the two-parter structure of the episode being reviewed. It's a lot of fun to play the villain and to have minions and to have this sort of overconfidence that Database doesn't usually display. Like, he's still talking about everything with the same enthusiasm that Database normally would, but there's a confidence behind there and an arrogance behind there that you don't usually see from Database, with the exception of that brief moment right at the end of episode 70 when he threatened the secretary. So definitely it's fun to play on those very slight, subtle variations of the character, where it's not just, you don't just play the evil character by doing the whole mwahaha evil voice like I did with the landlord, or when I do the actual Vengeance voice, with the very deep tones that I overlay on top of myself. It has to do sometimes with just what you're saying, because it's still Database's voice. I wanted to keep it as Database's voice, but make what he's saying be something that Database would never say, so that it's just that much more unsettling. And that's that little moment that Mayo has where she kind of wants him to stop talking because it's an evil computer virus speaking with Database's voice, matching Database's mannerisms. And that can be very unsettling. You occasionally see little things like that in various, possession stories or body switch stories, but rarely does the personality match quite to that level. And I really wanted to play around with that. So this is an episode where a lot of elements of continuity kind of come together, and I always love when I'm able to do that. Basically, the Summer Saga was largely structured so that I could do this two-parter. Because on top of just wanting to give my supporting cast more character development, I knew that in the state that they were at the end of year one, Mayo and Guy would be no match for Database. They needed something to be able to take on Evil Database, and I knew that I wanted to do an Evil Ranger arc, because Evil Ranger arcs are just part of that bread and butter of Power Rangers we've had, for decades. And Database is the only Power Ranger in the show, so I wanted to do a bit where I get turned evil. And it was fun playing with, the false, with the red herrings where, is it Database? Is it the landlord? Is the landlord actually Database? Has Database had swapped places with the landlord? Oh, surprise, surprise, it's actually Venjix, who was a red herring the previous year. So I always wanted to do this arc, specifically the, Database gets turned evil and his unpowered human friends have to save him. And the best way to have an evil Database, after establishing that he's a synth organic biomechanoid, felt like it would be using the Venjix virus. We have Alphabet Soup as a major force in this show. Why not use the Venjix virus? And wow, there's a lot of sound coming from our neighbors downstairs. They seem to be playing loud music. But yeah, in order to take him on, I needed Mayo and I needed Guy to be able to step up their game. So this is the episode where they get to finally show off what they've learned. Mayo gets to use her teleportation spell and her summoning spell, so that she was able to summon her tablet to her and then teleport away. Guy gets to use his knowledge of pressure points that he learned from Master Gel and that he had been clearly practicing off screen, as we hinted at the beginning of episode 72, to take Database by surprise and to be able to counter his moves. Because he's not as strong as Database is. Database is not human. He can overpower Guy. And he's got innate fighting skills. So Guy's only chance was going to be something that, was going to be very much based on dodges and attacking of weak points. And the pressure point approach seemed like it would be the best approach. With Master Gel having the animal spirit of the jellyfish. Much like, we had both Casey and Weiger both had the tiger spirit, so I felt like it could still be appropriate for a master to have the jellyfish spirit, even though Jellica was one of the overlords. So the idea with the jellyfish spirit is that jellyfish have paralyzing stingers, and that felt like and they have this very go with the flow kind of vibe, because they really just kind of float along through the water, and they can and they can sting and paralyze. And so that's what I figured would be Master Gel's style that would really fit well with making sure that Guy could take on Database. It's very sort of go with the flow, very much adapt to your surroundings, and hit with paralyzing moves. So Database is able to recover quickly, but it's just enough time so that Mayo can get back out of that room. And everything that's shot with regards to the Alphabet Soup, lab they confiscated from Dr. C, which is, making use of Guy's experience, having been an undercover agent for so long, taking advantage of the fact that Database literally took half a dozen agents with him, so fewer people there at Alphabet Soup for them to have to deal with. Just really playing a good misdirect strategy and using that teleportation to bypass things. Yeah, best of luck on your AP exams. May the power protect you as well. And yes, now lost my train of thought for a moment there. And I felt like that was a good way to use things that I realized the only way that they were going to be able to take Database off guard was with things that he did not know about them, and things the audience did know. The audience knew about their experiences in the Sumerian forest at a Jungle Karma Pizza. They knew that Mayo actually had a hacker background, and these were things that Database couldn't account for because he didn't know about it. Just as he didn't know that Dr. K had managed to make it back to their dimension. So these were elements that I felt needed to be in play in order for the Evil Ranger arc to work. Because an Evil Ranger arc, you have the two elements there. You need to make sure that the Evil Ranger is threatening, but that the heroes have a chance to defeat them. And I felt like this was through this series of them using knowledge that Database didn't have, that was going to be the best approach to make sure that they could actually take him out. And that's one of those bits where I feel like you're playing fair with the audience while playing dirty with your characters, because you're using the knowledge that has been established in the show that certain characters haven't been privy to take them by surprise. And I feel like that's really the main way that characters can outsmart each other. Far too often, I feel like the whole thing of, oh, this character is so smart, you can't foresee their moves. Very often in television shows, the idea of the super smart character is accomplished by simply making the main characters dumber for that instance. Like, there's things where they should have seen it coming, but they didn't see it coming, blah, 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 blah. But what you really need to do is set it up in such a way where they couldn't have seen it coming. They wouldn't have had access to that information. Where, the characters had no way of actually outsmarting the character because they didn't have access to the same resources. They didn't have any reasonable way of figuring things out. Like the way Vrak was trying to be in the two-parter. Like, the way that he was able to take out the Rangers so effectively was because he was, that's sort of a combo. He was able to take them out effectively because they weren't aware of what he was up to. He had planned for every contingency, and they weren't aware that he was making any of these plans. That being said, they were also dumb because they should have been looking for him at some point during the last few months. It's very much a bad habit that Power Rangers occasionally falls into, where they'll set something up and they'll pay it off, but they won't have any sort of follow through along the way, and so it just feels like the characters conveniently forgot about a plot point until the plot point was relevant again. And that's what's happening here with Vrak and Robo Knight, which I always find a little frustrating. They're not the only ones guilty of it. We have even, I just reviewed Fighting Spirit, earlier this year, and in Fighting Spirit, that's the episode where Tommy gets turned visible again. And the episode right before that was the one where they finally demorphed Tommy from his suit in Disappearing Act. But from Burning at Both Ends, where they established the problem at the end of Leader of the Whack, and then Burning at Both Ends, they, formalized the problem and made it clear that what the issue was. But from Burning at Both Ends, up until Disappearing Act, they didn't really make any efforts to demorph him or present it as something that was an active problem. And then in Disappearing Act, they're like, oh, we're finally going to be able to demorph you, without having made any of those efforts towards that goal along the way. And I always thought that was always a bit of an issue. Oh, okay. I've got some Twitter DMs. I will have to take a look at those when I get a moment. So after unless you were sending a question or anything. But I think that sort of wraps things up. It moves along at a quick clip, for an episode where I felt like it had a fair amount going on, with it being the actual setup and execution of a fairly clever strategy, um, from Guy and Mayo and Kay. Or at least I think it's clever. I know I'm the one who came up with the script and everything, so maybe I'm maybe it's not as clever as I think it is. But I felt like it works. And the next episode, which is going to be that effort, that whole big effort to reform, to bring back database and to eliminate Venjix. I think is also just another fun episode because it's really this is sort of that bread and butter of that Evil Ranger arc where they actually are pitting each other head to head. That was very much those handful of episodes where they're kind of setting things up and creating the unease, and then the reveal that he's evil, and then we have the quick strike, escape, laying low, and then return. In terms of the structure of this arc, it definitely was a little stretched out due to the second half of Super Megaforce being a little longer than I anticipated at the time, because they kept making the first half of those split seasons shorter and shorter. Keep in mind that the previous season they broke after episode 9. The season before that, they broke at like episode 13. The season before that, they broke at like 16 episodes. So this one breaking at 8 episodes meant that the spring saga was the spring season was a little shorter, and the fall season was a little bit longer. But at this point, it's just like boom, boom, boom all the way to the end now, because we have the showdown with Evil Database, the showdown with the Morpostners, and the big 2-part year 2 finale. Oh wow, we are. And as I was just saying, I realized we're less than a month from the year 2 finale now. Oh, that's wild. That's wild. We are just a few weeks from covering the year 2 finale, the biggest thing that we ever did, the thing that took 2 years to do, and we're going to be talking about that before the end of May. That's going to be. There's going to be stories. So I think this is probably a good place to wrap things up. But thank you again for joining me. I'm sorry that I also don't have that I don't have a thumbnail this week. I still haven't been able to get my full Adobe Creative Suite reloaded on my computer due to just our disk drive. The disk drive just isn't working right. I need to find a different disk drive to be able to properly install Illustrator again so I can get back to making thumbnails. Oh, and quick question on how the Power Ruby works. So when Guy hit database, it was really more of a solar plexus move, was the idea. The Ruby is inside his chest and can emerge when he summons it. So as we saw with the use of the Ruby Blast at the end of 96, the more he uses that power, the more exposed the Ruby becomes. So that's why the landlord was able to grab it in that one moment, and it was very painful for Database because obviously, this is the equivalent of his heart, as we've sort of established from the show itself. So sometimes it's internal, but it can sort of manifest outside, and that sort of goes in line with his phasing abilities. He basically can functionally be out of phase with the universe when he goes invisible, and that's what makes him immune to a lot of the temporal distortion effects, and allows him to actively observe them while others can't. But yeah, with regards to how the Ruby functions in that respect, it kind of phases through his chest to become externally visible and then form the armor around him when he morphs. And then it becomes a little bit more externalized if he were to take it out, like he did in Fall of the Phantom, or if he's summoning his Ruby Blast so that it can use it as a concentrated burst of energy. So, glad I was able to address that question. Yeah, whenever you guys have questions, I love to answer them. But now I know it is getting a little late, so we'll wrap things up with our remaining 3 equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say with me, chat, love is love. Number 2, say with me, chat, trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say with me, chat, robots are cool. Even evil robots are still kind of cool. You get fun exchanges, and you don't feel too bad about kicking them in the face or whatever it might be. So thank you again. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Hopefully I can start making thumbnails again once I can figure out how to get that reinstalled on my computer. But don't forget, Rapid Run Through and Deeper Look this Sunday at 11 a.m. for the next episode of Dino Fury, which I think I'm up to. I think New Leaf is next, which is a very interesting episode to talk about. So make sure you don't miss that Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern. And until next time, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you.